It's witchcraft.
Hey, it's 4:20 a.m. Hi, and welcome to the Stoned Witches Hour, Chelle and Layla's favorite time to tell each other spooky tales from across the USA while getting higher than Elon Musk's Twitter debt on the greenest ganja in the land, telling the most ghoulish ghost stories and smoking the dankest homegrown. I'm Layla.
And I'm still not driving a Tesla, but I'm Chelle.
Yeah. What? You don't want to take a vanity trip on a penis rocket to outer space? It was just Valentine's Day. What better way to tell your love that you love them than by buying them a trip to just inside outer space on a penis-shaped rocket by Elon Musk? I mean, come on.
I just want to know who were the people in on this design meeting?
Men. They were
Yes,
all men.
definitely that. That's the shape we're going with.
The shape that we want to pierce the Earth's atmosphere and penetrate the universe with. We've got it.
The worst part is Elon Musk is the type of guy that he probably sat there and was like, yeah, this better look like a penis.
Oh, I'm sure. He probably, yeah, it was probably written into the contract somewhere that it had to look as phallic as possible.
He just wants everybody to think he has a bigger dick than Jeff Bezos.
I'm not sure who's winning that war, and to be honest, I don't
I
really
don't want
care.
to know.
So, happy Valentine's Day, listeners. Welcome to episode 56 of the Stoned Witches Hour.
And if you didn't already have a bad Valentine's Day, then I want you to imagine Elon Musk's penis.
Oh, no.
There's not enough weed for that.
There is not enough weed for that. And I'm currently still waiting on my weed guy because I'm out of homegrown. I'm out. Now, and I'm sad.
I just got to point out, whoever is delivering to you today, don't name names because they suck. Because I feel like you've been waiting for this delivery for over an hour.
I have. And while I have to say this is definitely a much better day, I can remember the days of moving away, like almost 3 hours away from my plug and not finding anyone in the new area I was in. There were multiple times.
And driving the 3 hours.
I drove that 3 hours, or my husband drove that 3 hours back. Sometimes we would visit you after stopping at the plug, because at least that would help make it worth it. So long gone are the days of having to do that. I can just pick from multiple delivery services and have weed show up at my door. So I guess I'm complaining, but I'm not really complaining.
You're complaining, but complacent.
Right? I'm about to get a half an ounce of Thin Mints and a half an ounce of Mendocino OG. I'm going to get a gram of Super Lemon Haze Diamonds.
Ooh.
And another gram of Gorilla Glue Diamonds. So I'm about to be a very happy girl.
Well, you just stole my thunder because I'm actually smoking some Super Lemon Haze this week and I haven't had any in a while. So tell me and our listeners, what is the difference between the Super Lemon Haze I'm smoking and what is the Super Lemon Haze Diamond? Because I have a feeling that I'm going to be sad once I know the difference.
I am about to be smoking Super Lemon Haze Diamonds that started out exactly the same way that Chelle's Flower Super Lemon Haze started out. A very picky, tough to grow, pain in the ass, yet worth it, sativa of Super Lemon Haze, which is one of my OG faves, and I know Chelle's OG faves as well.
It's like the harder it is to grow, the more I love it.
I used to call sativas my head stash, and I know a lot of other growers did as well, because as long as they took and as picky as they were worth it. But the yield wasn't usually very high, so not very profitable unless you sold them for astronomical amounts of money. So I just keep it to smoke myself. But anyway, very tasty. One of the reasons we both adore this cultivar is because of its lovely citrusy taste and aroma.
It actually tastes like what it fucking says it is. Finally, a name matches the taste. It tastes like lemon.
It does. And it smacks you right in the face with that high THC, with that delicious lemon, with that sativa up buzzy feeling. You want to get up, you want to talk, you want to do things, you want to be social. And the diamonds
Is this like laced with like that moon rocks and shit? Because I'll cry.
No, moon rocks are something different. Moon rocks are a nug of cannabis that has been soaked in THC resin or some other type of liquid distillate or extract and then rolled in keef. And so you get a very hard nug that's resiny all the way through that has keef on it. And that's what's called a moon rock.
And that's what I love.
They're fabulous. They look like a hard little pebble and they will take you right to the fucking moon, which is where they got their name from. The THC on those is through the roof. What I'm smoking looks more like a light clear sauce with what looks like literal white crystals in it.
Did you say like a light clear sauce?
I did. It's an extract. THC diamonds are one of the most pure forms of THC or THCA that you can get from a plant.
Does it look like sap?
It does. It'll look like it can range in texture, but diamonds usually come in a very light sauce. It can range from clear to a light amber color. And then the diamonds themselves literally look like little clear diamonds or crystals in that sauce. The way diamonds are made, you take your plant, you take your flower, and you use either mild heat and high pressure to squish out the THC and the resin, or you use some type of chemical to extract that resin.
You should squish it because the chemical is yuck.
Yeah, you get a lower yield, but it's definitely much more pure and very, very nice. So you use a cold extraction method to get the resin, the live resin from a cannabis plant, and you squish the resin out of that. And then that has to usually sit for a period of time. That sauce usually has to sit in a cool place for a period of time. And that's when you get the pure THC crystals. And those will be roughly 99% THC. And the sauce will have a lot of the terpenes in it, and as well as have THC.
99%?
That's correct.
That's
and a lot of
fuck your ass up.
It is. Now, a lot of times these are what you'll see called THCA, which is the non-psychoactive form of THC. Basically, it just means it has not yet been decarboxylated. It hasn't had any heat applied to it to change that THCA to the psychoactive THC, which is what gets you high. And now I feel like we're having a science class. It's not very scary.
You know, we're not going to talk about this today, partially because I don't have packaging and you don't have packaging yet. But I do want to, in a future episode, I want to talk about labeling and how to read labels and what they're putting on the labels and what that means.
Oh, I love that.
So you said THCA, and that's what sparked me to think of that, because you see that on labels and then you'll see THC and THCA. Well, what the fuck is the difference? How do I know? I'm not Layla. I don't know the difference. So that's going to be something that we're going to discuss when I have actual packaging to discuss it with.
Is that a sloth weed breakout tray?
It is a sloth weed breakout tray.
I love it so much. That is the cutest little sloth ever.
It's like one of those metal trays. It's super cute.
That is so cute. What a cutie sloth. He's holding a pineapple.
He's holding a pineapple.
I love it. I just found out actually what an upside down pineapple means.
Why? What's an upside down pineapple mean?
I never knew this, and I'm feeling a little out of the loop and dumb, Chelle.
Well, I don't know. I'm like today years old. Like, what's going on?
I saw this because on some Twitter thread or something, some lady had gotten a pineapple tattoo while she was on vacation. And all of her friends are like, it looks like an upside down pineapple. Did you not know what that means? And
I just need to interject this before you continue any further. You know, our friend from England.
Yes.
We always played with pineapples. And it kind of started out as a thing in our online phone game that, you know, you're being a dick, so we're going to shove a pineapple up your ass. So,
oh, I see.
We have this infatuation with pineapples. So please tell me now, because our pushing middle-aged selves with our friends think that these are funny, and I'm afraid of what's coming out of your mouth next.
Well, apparently, back in the day, before there were swinging cruises.
Oh, God.
If you were on a regular cruise and you wanted to signal to other people on the cruise that you were open to the swinging lifestyle, you would somehow manage to place a pineapple upside down. somewhere where people could see
Oh
it.
my God.
Because, I guess, this fruit's pretty everywhere on these cruises, right? But you'd never see an upside down pineapple. So if you put an upside down pineapple picture on your door, or if you wore an upside down pineapple pin, or if you walked around wearing a pineapple Hawaiian type shirt that had upside down pineapples on it, that was the hidden clue that you were up for a little swapping action.
Oh my God. I did not know that. And oh, wow. Okay.
I had no idea. And, I guess it's less of a thing. It's still a thing, I guess, on cruises. I have never been on a cruise, but I guess it's still a thing on cruises, but less now that they have actual cruises for that type of thing. You don't have to be so hidden. You can just sign yourself right the fuck up for a swingers cruise. They're like, I want to do some swinging. You just go on that cruise. You don't have to covertly put your pineapples upside down anymore.
So, Ghost, if you're listening, we're going to move on from pineapples. We're gonna have to find something else to pose with Mr. Potato Head when you come visit, okay?
Yeah, just don't put it upside down. Pineapples are fine, just not an upside down pineapple. A little bit of upside down pineapple sex tips for you for our almost Valentine's Day episode. Or is it Valentine's Day?
Actually, we're airing the day after Valentine's Day, so everybody will have gotten their groove on, and then they'll wake up and listen to us.
Well, there you go. There's your tip for the day after Valentine's Day. So depending on how your Valentine's Day went, either really, really well or really, really badly, you might need this upside down pineapple information. I don't know. Just saying. Right now, everyone's hot and bothered. It was just Valentine's Day. Who knows what people got up to? I don't know.
And I just got to say, spring is springing here in New England.
It's February. It's not supposed to be spring yet. We haven't had Ostara.
It was almost like 60 yesterday. It's like 50 something already today. I'm thinking that with spring, I am going to not phase out forever, but I am going to phase out my silicone love here.
What? Your favorite silicone pipe? No.
Well, I didn't say it might not be replaced with something similar, but I am going to search out in the spring a new go-to pipe. The thing with the silicone pipe, legit, is the lid. It's the lid. You cannot discount a pipe with a cap.
Especially if you're in a situation where you can't finish it, right. Or if you just want to pack it and pop it in your pocket,
right.
Having a lid is so lovely. And you are an on-the-go smoker quite often.
Right.
So having that lid is important.
So I might get a new silicone pipe with a lid, but I haven't ruled that out. But I'm definitely going to be getting something different in the spring. But for right now, I am still rocking this. You can't go wrong with it. You clean it with hot water. You don't even need like chemicals to clean it. Like, how easy.
How many glass pieces have I fallen in love with and lost in the same time that you have had that pipe?
I know, right? But you've acquired some pretty badass looking pipes though, too.
I do. I have some very beautiful glass that's lasting just fine. But what are you smoking today, Chelle?
I'm smoking some super lemon haze, and I
haven't right.
Yeah, I haven't had any in a while. I probably haven't had super lemon haze in like 2 months or so. I feel like I was on Endgame for the longest stretch, but I'm loving it.
I do that too. I find when I get a deal or if I'm harvesting and I haven't been careful about amount, sometimes I will end up smoking the same thing for the longest time.
Yeah. Well, this was like a deal thing. Like they were having, I think what it is they were getting to the point where they've got a new crop coming. And so they're trying to get rid of the last batch before the new crops are ready to harvest. So when they do that, what a lot of the dispensaries do that grow their own and have their own farms is when they've got a new crop ready to roll, they will put the old crop on sale and get rid of it so that everything's new and fresh.
That makes sense.
So I think with the end game, I think they were getting to the point where they had a new crop coming and they were just trying to get rid of it because it was quote unquote old stock. I smoked Endgame for a good month and a half, maybe even 2 months solid because the deals on it were impeccable.
Now, the shelf life, you can freeze weed. I don't recommend it, but you can, and you can store it in a cool, dry place to keep it for a long period of time. But honestly, after a few months, it's going to start to degrade and you're going to start to lose potency. Anything older than 6 months on the shelf, you're probably going to want to look for something else. Will it still get you high? Will it still taste great? Yes. And unfortunately, I think a lot of, especially the cheaper stuff you'll find on the East Coast, is stale West Coast weed because it still works. But I think that's when you're getting that super dry, super crumbly, super packaged stuff, particularly on the East Coast. I think that's stale West Coast weed. So they're not quite as nice as some of the local dispensaries, like you said, that grow their own.
Right.
They'll discount it a few months later to kind of move it quickly before it gets stale.
And that's kind of what Happy Valley does pretty consistently is, you can tell their cycle based on their sales, because when they've got a new crop coming, they're getting ready to dump, and you figure every 3 months. So, a 3-month block, that's not, in my opinion, stale weed. I will buy the shit out of that. What did I get? I got 15 1-gram pre-rolls for like $120. Like, come on, you can't beat that.
Yeah, the pre-roll sales that you found, the smalls that we were talking about,
Yep.
Anytime you can find deals like that, it's a great way to save a little bit of money, because it does take a couple years after a place first legalizes for the prices to actually drop down. They stay pretty high in the beginning.
Right. And we're what, 3-4 years into 3-4-5 years into legalization here in Massachusetts. So things have really settled down. And because I know they do this cyclically with their grows, I will buy the shit out of their sales when they're dumping them. Bring it on.
Smart.
I'm the girl that you are marking that down for. So my end game run has ended, and now I'm on to Super Lemon Haze. And boy,
Nice.
it's got that, you want to clean, you want to chat, you want to get all your shit done. It's that very uppity high that you expect from a Super Lemon Haze.
Now, after having done my first hit of the Super Lemon Haze Diamonds,
How is it?
It's delicious. It's citrusy. It definitely has a very high kick. I can feel it immediately start to work once I take the hit.
Now, does that diamond give it more of a lemony flavor?
Maybe less. It's the sauce around it that has more of the flavor. The diamonds tend to be almost strictly just THCA. And so
there's no flavor whatsoever.
But they usually, again, are in sauce. So there will be sauce on it, or you can scoop more of the sauce with it when you do your dab hit. So the diamond itself is almost entirely THCA. But they usually come in a sauce, and that's more of the terpenes and more of the flavor. So yeah, great lemon taste. It's fabulous. Love it. Very high. Ready for some scary stories.
I was going to say, you look fucked up.
Yep.
Valentine's Day just happened. I don't know what you've got going today. We generally never talk about this beforehand, but I've got some ghost stories of tragic love.
Oh, I'm excited about that. That'll be good to hear. That's good. I know last year I talked about, still one of my favorite episodes was the amorous bones.
Yep.
From Colorado. So I'm curious to see. My ghost story, it's a lady in white story. And as you know, they very often start with a tragic romance, and this one did too. But it's more about the cemetery itself, so a little less on the romance side. So I'm excited to hear your spooky yet sad love tales.
I have like 3 shorts, we'll call them, that are, I don't know if you want to call them Happy Valentine's Day ghost stories.
All right, well, tell me your spooky Valentine's Day ghost stories first, and then we'll get into my longer and frightening tale that actually mentions Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Ooh, which actually I just recently saw on Facebook that Lorraine Warren, her birthday recently passed.
Well, the cemetery I'll be speaking about was just a few miles away from their home and is about 1 mile from the cemetery where they're both buried.
Well, I'm going to start out with a deathly love triangle.
Ooh, okay.
Who doesn't love a good love triangle on Valentine's?
Especially a deathly one.
Right? Now, there is a place in St. Augustine, Florida called the Castillo de San Marcos. We know I pronounce stuff so horribly, so don't email us. Yeah, don't email us. I already know I said it wrong. It's one of the oldest masonry forts in the United States. So as you can imagine, it's already got some tales to tell in its walls to begin with. Basically, it was built as one of the first forts to kind of combat pirates.
Oh, okay.
So, it's near that St. Augustine Lighthouse, like down in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from the fact that the place is like dripping with paranormal activity, we're going to kind of stick to this affair that led to murder at this place. So I'm going to take you back to 1784 because, there was love triangles even in the 1700s.
Oh.
So this colonel, it was Garcia Martini. He basically was sent to this fort to do whatever colonels do there. I don't know. Rule the land. Be a drill sergeant. I don't know. So he brings his young wife, Dolores. He wasn't really the greatest husband. He was kind of shitty, ignored her, kind of acted like she wasn't there, kind of how do they describe that on Pornhub? She was like a free use wife.
Oh, great. Hold on. How do we get from 1700s relationship to Pornhub free use wife?
Big jump there, folks.
There's
Big
a leap.
jump.
It's a leap. It's Valentine's Day. I guess we're doing that.
So she began to have an affair with her husband's assistant, whose name was Captain Manuel Abella. So she's having an affair with her husband's assistant. And as you can imagine, like they're working real close together. So things are gonna kind of sneak out. She wore a very unique type of perfume.
Oh no, I think I can see where this is going.
It's kind of like if you got that girlfriend who wears patchouli, you're going to smell that patchouli no matter what, okay? So Dolores has her very unique perfume. And one day, Garcia smelled Dolores's perfume on Manuel.
Oh no. Yeah,
Yeah.
so now the girlfriend who distinctly smells of patchouli, now your best friend smells like patchouli, and you're suspicious.
So, as you can imagine, in 1784, shortly after that, Dolores and Manuel go missing.
Oh, both of them. Okay.
Shockingly.
Surprise.
So Garcia, the husband, told everyone that Dolores had returned to Spain and that he had sent Manuel on a special assignment to Cuba.
Okay. Convenient. Very convenient. I'm sure everyone believes him.
Well,
No problem.
because he's the colonel, yeah, your wife went off to the homeland and you had to send your number two off to Cuba to do
Sure.
some stuff.
No
Makes
questions
sense.
asked.
No questions asked. 50 years later, the things you could get away with in 1784.
Right? No one questioned a thing. Like it's not like you're gonna call and find out anything.
Right. So this is where it kind of gets really sad. 50 years later, a hidden room was found in a dungeon behind a brick wall at the Castillo de San Marcos.
Oh wow.
And the remains of a woman and a man were found there.
He walled them up.
Some versions say that they were chained to the wall, and some say that there was basically a pile of human ashes, like they were burned to death.
Damn.
Kind of those specifics are a little bit sketchy depending on what stories you read. Either way, all the stories go back to they were bricked behind this dungeon.
Wow, walled up in a dungeon and just left there. Ugh.
Yeah. Speaking of your lady in white, so there are sightings of a woman in a white dress reported on the site, which they assume is Dolores.
Mm-hmm.
Some ghostly things related to this specific story is where they found that brick wall leading into this dungeon. They say that sometimes you can faintly hear a man and a woman screaming.
Oh,
Now,
that's
again,
gross.
this place is like soaking wet of paranormal activity up and down every inch of the place. But those specific things relate to this story. This location has everything from seeing soldiers walk the halls
Wow.
to, again, supposedly Dolores, their version of the lady in a white dress.
Well, the lady in white stories always seem to be precipitated by some type of tragic love story, which this obviously qualifies.
Right. It's kind of sad. And, back then you could easily make people disappear. So Colonel Garcia Marti never, there was no consequences to this. He just made him disappear. Done.
Yeah, and depending on how powerful and how well liked you were, who would question him? Why would there be any question that his wife went home and just never came back? Sometimes that happened. And like I said, there's no way to call. Any type of correspondence could take years.
Especially when you say that your wife went to Spain from Florida in the 1700s. How you ever
Yeah,
disproven that? You're not.
exactly. Nope. So he got away with it.
Got away with it. And, 50 years later, they found the bodies, but by that time, I would assume he was long dead.
Right.
So I'm going to jump real quick up to Forester, Michigan. So this is a quick story of forbidden love. There was a young girl, Minnie Quay. She was the 15-year-old daughter of James and Marianne Quay. And again, they were in Forester, Michigan. So they often saw boats coming in and out of town. Minnie, of course, any 15-year-old girl, falls in love with a sailor. All I can think of is like being on vacation and you're at the beach and you fall in love with the guy at the beach, knowing full well that when summer's
Summer
over,
camp, your summer camp romance.
like John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John, it's like this Grease thing. So Minnie fell in love with this sailor. And of course, her parents disapproved. He was probably much older, I would imagine. Not much is known about him. So one day, word came to town that the boat he was on sank.
Oh no, poor Minnie. She must have been heartbroken.
Oh my God, she was distraught. And her parents had forbidden her to even say goodbye when he left.
Oh no, even worse.
This girl is like torn to bits, okay? I mean, just remember when you were 15 years old and were like love struck. Probably, but this whole, oh, older man. Oh,
Yeah, but probably she felt that. She really felt that.
she did. So sometime after, she was babysitting her infant brother for her parents, left the house, walked down to the waterfront. She waved to people at one of the nearby hotels as she walked by. She literally like walked to the cliff into Lake Huron and just plunged into the water.
No. With the baby, or did she leave her brother
No,
at home?
she left the baby at home. She left the baby at home and went to the waterfront alone. But like I said, very happily and cheerily waved to the people outside of the inn as she walked by. And she literally walked off the cliff into Lake Huron.
Oh, damn.
Legend says that she still walks the beach, waiting for her sailor to return. And there's also legends that she lures young girls towards the water and towards their death.
Oh.
Almost like some of the folklore kind of makes it out like she's trying to get girlfriends for other lost sailors kind of thing. Hey, let me go get my friends.
Yeah, a lot of these tragic lost loves very often, such as the folklore of La Llorona, where the woman who was scorned by her husband and drowned her children and then immediately felt sorrow for it. A lot of these women, like they'll take their own lives, but then afterwards they turn into this almost fearful, like trickster spirit, like this type of spirit that then tries to draw other people to their deaths, similar to La Llorona. So, very often it goes from being a tragic story to being a very scary story.
There have been sightings of folks saying that they've seen her walking up and down the beach. Again, we're going to take it back to your lady in white. She's always wearing a white dress. I think it's like if you are like some heart-stricken female, you are destined to spend eternity in a white dress. I don't know. But I got one more for you, and this is a romantic murder plot.
Oh, okay.
So this is actually taking it to Albany, New York, capital of New York State. Jesse Strange deserted his wife and children and began a new life in Albany, New York. Changed his name to Joseph Orton. And
Like that's better than Jesse Strange.
I know. And he began working for the Van Rensselaer's residence in Cherry Hill. He caught the eye of an affluent girl who was married.
Uh-oh.
But him and her decided their love could flourish without her husband around.
Oh, of course,
And
But that doesn't mean run away. They don't mean by running away, right?
No.
Tell me they mean running away.
Absolutely not, because this is in 1827.
Oh, no. Well, running away would have been easy then. They could have even run away, changed their names, and told everyone they were married, and people would believe them.
Or you could try arsenic poisoning.
Oh, well, yeah, sure. Probably easier.
Jesse had a failed attempt of poisoning Elsie's husband, John Whipple, he tried to basically kill him via arsenic poisoning and failed.
And didn't do a good enough job.
Like, dude, really? If
Did
you're
they
gonna,
then decide to run away?
I know, right? Nope, they tried to hide their murder plot,
Of
but
course.
then Jesse shot John Whipple.
Oh, well, that's faster than arsenic poisoning.
They didn't cover their tracks well.
Uh-oh.
So they ended up having to go to trial. They ended up getting convicted of this. So Jesse Strange was found guilty of first-degree murder. But even though Elsie Whipple had, like, I mean, they knew that they were in cahoots together, but basically they didn't find her guilty as an accomplice.
So they had kind of proof that he did it, but they couldn't really prove she was the accomplice?
I don't know if it was that they couldn't prove it, but they just didn't,
Pursue it?
they acquitted her.
Okay.
Yeah. I think they kind of, she let out some information. She knew stuff about people, you know, in 1827, what they call those tea circles or something,
Sure.
where all the women of all the affluent men would get around and talk about each other's husbands'
Oh,
gossip.
she had all the dirt on people. She
Right,
knew all the
right.
tea.
Because she was of a higher class, she knew things about the judges of the trial and like the prosecution. She knew stuff about them and their wives. So like they kind of backed off of her trial so that they didn't screw themselves.
Right. They were afraid of what she would say if she was like put on trial.
Right. So Jesse basically took all of the blame, even though she was essentially a 50-50 accomplice.
I gotcha. Well, that's kind of sneaky.
So even according to the Albany tourist site, all the members of the love triangle, so John Whipple, Elsie Whipple, and Jesse Strange, all roam the halls of Cherry Hill.
Oh no. Can you imagine having to spend eternity with your like unfaithful spouse and their lover? That would suck.
Like in court. It's basically like y'all got stuck in court. It's like the dead husband's spirit came to court for the trial, and then all three of them just got stuck in court for eternity.
Ugh.
People have actually witnessed a ghost on the bottom floor of Cherry Hill and believe that it's Mr. Whipple. They say that he's not hostile, but gives off a feeling of anger. They say that Jesse Strange's ghost is seen where the gallows once stood, wearing the same clothes he wore on the day of his execution. Because basically, they ended up executing him. They hung him.
Oh wow. So she gets off scot-free.
She gets away scot-free, and then she's got a dead husband and a dead lover. How'd that work out for you? Seriously.
Well, she probably got to keep the money. She didn't have to go to jail. And she doesn't have a boyfriend around bugging her, you know, hey, I killed your husband. You should let me have some cash. So I think she made out pretty good, actually.
But, you know, unfortunately, she's kind of stuck there with the guy she left for the guy that's there too. Like, what a bad eternity.
Yeah, she's stuck with the guy she cheated on, the guy she convinced to kill him and then let him take the full blame. Damn.
Yeah.
None of them are having a pleasant afterlife from the sounds of it.
No.
I just feel bad for the husband here. I mean, everybody else kind of sucks in this story.
So Cherry Hill in Albany has this great thing going on. Lucky them. So unfortunately, it seems like all of the ghosts that I have found that are related to lovey-dovey Valentine's Day stuff are like shit shows of relationships, like literal shit shows. So, you know, it's funny because when I was looking into kind of this, like, what could I find related to love and Valentine's Day and our theme? The one that kept popping up was a story I did. I don't even remember what episode. I could look it up.
Emily's Bridge?
Emily's Bridge. How'd you know?
Because that one also popped up for me anytime I was doing research on ladies in white and tragic love stories.
Yeah.
Because Emily's Bridge, in a previous episode, Chelle talked about it, is a very sad lady in white tragic love story.
So if you go back to episode 31, you can hear all about Emily and her bridge on Emily's Bridge, and you can hear about her being her lady in white, dragging her dead feet on the roof of cars.
Mm-hmm. No fun. But lady in white stories are pervasive all over the world. They've been happening for hundreds of years. And some people think that the whole idea of the white of it comes because they were originally thought of as spirits of a place or elf spirits. Sometimes they were thought of as being healers, and they were seen in like a bright white light. And so some people think maybe that's an origin of some of these ladies in white. They're very often in many cultures, like in Mexico with La Llorona, in Japan, they're vengeful spirits, but they're usually women who suffered some sort of tragic love story. Either they died right after they got married, or died in childbirth, or they were cheated on, or they were the one cheating and then they were murdered. But there was some sort of tragic love story, occasionally involving children, sometimes not. And they did something drastic. They killed their lover, they killed themselves, they killed their children. And so now they're seen around the place where they committed this crime or this tragedy happened, usually dressed in a white ball gown or a nightgown or a wedding gown, depending on what their particular story is. And so it's this idea of innocence and tragedy and fearsomeness. A woman who would kill her children, that's terrible, or kill her lover, that's awful. But usually there's some equally awful backstory that can almost give you a reason why. But they're very, very tragic figures.
I do want to tell you something cute before I wrap up my portion here. So you know Harry Houdini?
Yes.
Okay.
Famous magician from the past, used to debunk spiritualists.
Correct. And actually, he has been to Salem. They have a Houdini alley here from when he was imprisoned here briefly. Anywho, so Harry Houdini and his wife Bess, they kind of fall into like this romantic ghost thing. And I love this little tidbit. Before Harry died, the two of them agreed. I don't know if you know this. The two of them agreed on a secret phrase that they would transmit to one another after one of them died, like through a medium, thus providing spirit contact between the loved ones.
So they would know.
So he's trying to debunk spiritualism on one hand, and on the other hand, he has a secret code phrase with little old Bess, so how they can chit-chat and know it's each other once one of them's dead.
Well, that makes sense. If he thought that most spiritualists were fake, then if he had a code phrase, any spiritualist that said, I have contact with Harry Houdini, would have to know this code phrase.
Right.
Or Bess would be like, you're bullshitting, get the fuck out.
Or
so that makes sense.
Or vice versa. If she died, he would, vice versa. They would transmit this code word. So yeah, I recommend try it with all your friends.
Have a code word.
A code word. Yeah, that's kind of one of the cuter things. I don't know if they ever tried the theory and if it worked, if the code word was spoken. Like, I don't know that part, but I just thought it was a cute little, they love each other.
Yeah, I think that is cute, and that they're hoping to speak to each other from beyond. I love that. It reminds me of that grandmother that made the little Ouija board cards to give out at her funeral so that people could stay in touch. That's adorable.
Keep in touch. I love that. Yeah.
It's very sweet. My grandmother, before she passed, told everyone that she was going to make a salt shaker implode. And I haven't seen it yet.
Implode?
So Grandma, I'm still waiting. Yes, she said she was going to make a salt shaker implode, and that would be our proof that she was still around. And I haven't seen it yet. As far as I know, no one in my family has yet either. But we're all waiting.
I want to be around for that one.
If it happens, I will let you know.
So those are my little tidbit romantic ghost killer cheating bastard stories.
Yeah, there's a lot of cheating in our Valentine's ghost stories today.
Cheating and murdering.
Mine doesn't involve so much cheating and murdering, but it does also involve ladies in white. Because if you start looking for romantic ghost stories or ghost love stories, you're going to come up with lady in white stories from all over the country, including ones we've talked about. I did see the ghost of Emily's Bridge because she is a tragic lady in white ghost. But the one that I decided to talk about was a cemetery that was visited by Ed and Lorraine Warren because of a lady in white sighting.
Ooh.
And the lady in white here is another famous lady in white. They often get a lot of local attention and a lot of local legends built up around these women, like the ghost of Devil's Elbow in Owego, New York. There's a lot of local legend around them. So this particular cemetery is Union Cemetery, which opened up in the 1700s, and it's roughly 7 acres, and it's in Connecticut. It sits at this intersection of Stepney, Sport Hill, and Westport Roads
At a crossroads, great. We're
at a
already
crossroads.
we're already looking good here, folks.
Now, I've seen a video that Ed Warren actually took here and captured a ghost. This is what he called one of his most compelling pieces of evidence. But one of the things I've seen in all the videos of this place is it's quite noisy. It is at a crossroads. And so although the
What do you mean
cemetery
noisy? Like
road
real,
noise, like road noise, you
okay,
hear a lot of road noise.
legitimate, real noise.
Yeah, but the cemetery itself is oddly peaceful despite all the road noise around it. It still has that very peaceful cemetery kind of air.
Which is even more frightening, to be honest with you.
Right? So now the ghost sightings here go back as far as the 1940s, and it's listed as one of the most haunted places in the entire country. Now, it's set off by stone walls and wrought iron fencing, like your typical scary cemetery.
They all are the most haunted in the country. It's like famous roast beef here in Massachusetts. They're all world famous.
World's best cup of coffee on every corner. Yes, this is the most famous, most haunted cemetery, Shell.
Wait, are there
The
gates
most.
to hell here? Are there gates to hell here?
No.
Ah, damn it.
You know, they keep saying, I keep coming up with these places that are the most haunted something. Not one of them lately has had a gates to hell. So I think that they're slipping as far as the bar to the most haunted.
If you don't have a gates to hell, you can't even put most haunted.
Can you even say that you're the most haunted? I mean, this place doesn't even have a cryptid in a pond. I mean, come on.
Oh, Jesus. Come on, folks.
It's closed from dusk till dawn, and apparently so many people go here that the police are serious about it being closed at night. That does not stop ghost hunters from going here, however.
Like even to this day?
Even to this day, people
no
go
shit.
there. Oh yeah, a lot of the videos I saw
Makes
are
me wanna
very,
go
very
there.
recent. You will get orb sightings. You will see a demon with red eyes. And of course, the infamous lady in white. Let me tell you a couple stories about this lady in white.
If you've got a demon, we can almost call that a cryptid.
Okay, that's true. We do have a red-eyed demon, and Ed Warren did say that there was demonic activity here. Okay, so although the ghost stories start back in the 40s with this lady in white, and she's been seen quite often, they didn't get very serious until the early 1990s. It was about actually 1990, and a gentleman named Rod Vesey, who was about 25 years old at the time, he lived in Easton and often drove past the cemetery as he was going to and from work. He worked at the Home Depot not too far away. And so the cemetery was along his route, very common for him to drive by it. He worked the late shift and was often done at midnight. And so it was almost 1 o'clock by the time he was driving by the cemetery after his shift.
Pushing the witching hour.
Pushing the witching hour. So he says further up the road, he saw what looked to be a woman standing in the middle of the road. So he tapped on the brakes. And he says as he tapped on the brakes, he felt someone touch his right arm from the passenger seat.
Oh, Lord.
And he looked to his side and he sees an older gentleman, like in his 60s, with a short, grizzled, like 5 o'clock shadow beard and a crumpled hat, wearing what looked like an old-time, maybe 1940s-ish kind of suit.
Well, when you start this ride alone and you haven't stopped and let anybody in, that's the first sign to shit yourself.
Yeah. So he did a double take, and by the time he did that, the man was gone. But the woman was directly in front of him. So he slammed on his brakes and stopped the car. He says the lady in white standing in the middle of the road held her hand up as if to say stop. And he's not moving. She's not moving. And yet somehow her hand gets bigger and bigger, like she's moving closer to him, and then moves through his car, through him, and disappears. And he says as she moved through him, he felt like not just a temperature change, but an immense feeling of sadness just rolled over him. Now, I've heard some accounts of Rod from people who knew him, and they all said he was a very straight-laced, stand-up, cold sober, not the type to see ghosts kind of guy.
Like the kind of guy that if he's telling you this story, you know damn well that shit happened.
Exactly. Now, after this woman moved through him and was gone, he said he started driving again, but the road just on his side of the road was deep red, as if it was smeared with blood.
I would be freaking out.
He was, and he said he just felt this immense sadness. And he got home, ran up the stairs, and just threw himself in his wife's lap and just sobbed his eyes out. He just could not shake this feeling of sorrow that had come over him.
That's shitty.
Yeah. He was so scared, he called up Ed and Lorraine Warren, who lived nearby, and told them what he had experienced.
So, of course, they're like, be right over.
And they were. Ed has often said that he was quite surprised that one of the most haunted places that he'd ever been to was right in his own backyard, and he hadn't even known. He ended up setting up cameras and equipment in the cemetery for about 7 days. And at the end of one of those days, he caught video, you can find it online, of what he called his most compelling evidence of a ghost. Now, he says he heard some noises and then looked through the viewfinder of the camera and saw these orbs kind of coalesce into a woman's form. And when he tried to walk closer to her, she disappeared. And he says, knowing that ghosts often do that, he kind of backed away far enough that she reappeared again. So he just kind of stayed back away from his camera and everything and just watched. And what you can see is what looks very clearly like a woman's form in a glowing white dress and veil with dark hair walk. He's several rows, cemetery rows away from her, but you can see her form walking down the cemetery row. And as it goes behind the tall gravestones, it disappears only to reappear again as it moves through, just like a person would as if they were walking down the rows.
No shit. I got to check that video out.
There's so many hauntings and so many entities in this cemetery that Ed and Lorraine found that they wrote a book about it called Graveyard: True Hauntings from an Old New England Cemetery.
Now, where is this? What town did you say this was in Connecticut?
Easton.
Okay.
So there are several legends that would fit the Lady in White story. There's 2 young women in particular that people think could be the Lady in White or might both be ladies in white at this cemetery. One woman is named Harriet B. Seeley. She died in 1853. She was born October 19th, 1815, and she married a gentleman named Titus Bryan on February 10th, 1836. 9 days later, she was dead. It doesn't say how she died, just that she was returned home to her family and was buried in the Union Cemetery.
Oh, shit. After 9 days?
After 9 days. She was married February 10th. She died February 19th.
He killed her.
Now, she died at her husband's home in Washington, Connecticut. Nothing is said as to why she died, but it could have been some type of illness. I mean, she did have to travel to get to his home. Maybe she caught a cold or something. Maybe she had some type of infection. I don't know. However, there's also another woman named Harriet Seeley. This woman married a gentleman named Ezra Sherwood Seeley in 1850 when she was 24. And 3 years later, on May 20th, she gave birth to a baby boy, and he died the same day.
Aww.
She died on May 28th, 8 days later. And some people say that it's her ghost that wanders the cemetery looking for her baby boy.
Aww.
Because they think that sometimes when children were stillborn, they were very often either taken away and buried in a mass grave by the midwife, or sometimes they were just wrapped in a cloth and put in a casket of someone else who had died recently. Mm-hmm. So they say that his grave isn't known, and so her ghost is roaming around trying to find where her son was buried. But both of them could fit the Lady in White history, because the first one was only married for 9 days when she died unexpectedly and mysteriously. And then the second woman died shortly after her son passed away. So both of them kind of fit that Lady in White legend. Now, the people that see the Lady in White at this cemetery all describe a drop in temperature and a feeling of sadness. Now, a few years later in 1993, there's another encounter with the Lady in White that's even more amazing. So this gentleman who was a firefighter got a call about an electrical explosion in a nearby town called Monroe, which is right near this cemetery. He drove to the site and was told to help divert traffic away. So he had a police officer in the seat of his truck as they went to go find a spot to safely divert traffic away from this electrical accident. And there was another car behind him. Now, he says that they were right behind the cemetery when the officer yelled out, "Look out, stop." And he said he looked in the road and he saw a woman standing in the center of the road. And she had flowing brown hair and was wearing what looked to him to be like a fancy white nightgown. He said she looked surprised and he slammed on the brakes, but he was too late and he hit her. He said when he hit her, it was like running straight into a brick wall. He said he slammed forward. It felt like the back end of his truck came up. And when he was able to come to a stop, he didn't see anyone in the road. He and the officer immediately jumped out of the truck, as well as the woman in the car behind him jumped out and said, "Oh my gosh, you hit her." And so they all start looking for this woman, and there's no one to be found.
Oh shit. But yet it felt like they hit a brick wall. Oh no shit.
Yeah, and even the woman in the car behind him said when she saw him, "Oh my God, you hit her." But no one could find any trace of this woman anywhere. She was completely gone. No blood, no clothing, no trace of the woman anywhere. The officer that was also a witness said he clearly saw the woman and then she was just gone. There was nowhere for her to have run off. He would have seen it, but she was nowhere to be found.
Wow.
So Ed and Lorraine Warren also felt that there was demonic activity. Another entity that's seen at the cemetery is usually only described as a pair of red glowing eyes. And people will say that the temperature around them will actually go up and they'll feel what seems to be like a hot breath on the back of their neck. And then they'll see red glowing eyes in the trees or in the bushes around them. And it just feels eerie and scary.
Sounds like a cryptid demon to me.
Could be a cryptid. Ed Warren, who was a demonologist, did say that it was a demon. And he felt that it was related to a murder that had taken place across the street from the cemetery. Now, local lore has it that a man named Earl Kellogg was cheating on his wife and was caught and was lured to the cemetery where he was doused in gasoline and set on fire in retaliation for having cheated.
Oh, shit.
He died there, obviously. And so Ed Warren felt that it was either Earl Kellogg that caused this demonic activity or that Earl was the demon himself. But very often people will say that they see this demon or these red eyes in the cemetery, and it's another common sighting. Some people even say that when they see the lady in white, they'll see what looks to be like small black dog-like figures with red eyes jumping up from the ground at her, almost as if they're trying to stop her or like pull her into the ground.
Oh shit, like pull her into the underworld, man.
Now, of course, this place is rife with orbs. Everywhere you go, you can
Your
get
fave.
my fave, but just in the cemetery proper itself. Pictures taken outside the cemetery don't have the orbs. There's also quite a few EVPs that you can find online that are creepy as fuck.
Ooh.
One of them is a woman who goes there specifically looking for ghostly EVPs, and she didn't get any, or so she thought. When she listened to it later and enhanced the audio, she says all you can hear is a woman screaming the entire time she's there.
Oh shit.
Other people that go in will hear, they say it's almost like a party. Remember you said there's a cemetery in Salem, Massachusetts, where you feel people are like, "Hey, how you doing? It's a party."
Yeah.
People who go to specifically get EVPs have described this cemetery very similarly. The spirits here want to talk, and people's EVP recordings will be peppered with, "Hi there. Hey, come on over. What you doing?"
Oh.
And other comments of that nature, almost as if people are greeting you as if you're at a party.
They want to hang out.
They want people to notice them. It's a very active area. One of the more intriguing EVPs that I found was made by a group of teenagers who were just kind of fucking around, but they actually got the spirit to say his name, and he was quite sweary, even worse than we are. But all the EVPs were just peppered with swear words. He was a pissed off, upset ghost. And it turns out when they researched his name, he was someone who had been killed by a drunk driver right near the cemetery.
Oh.
And
Oh,
obviously
shit.
he was not
Angry.
happy.
He was angry.
He was very angry about all of it. There's two legends of women who were killed there by jealous lovers. One, that a woman in the 1940s, her husband suspected that she was having an affair, although she wasn't, and he murdered her and buried her in a shallow grave at the cemetery.
Dick.
Exactly. Another local legend, and I don't know if this one's true or not, much like the Earl Kellogg legend, I could find a lot of references to it, but I couldn't find a lot of factual information. Another such story is about a young woman in the early 1900s that was having an affair with a minister of the Baptist church that's right there. And in order to cover it up, he killed her and then dumped her body in a sinkhole that's behind the church, adjacent to the cemetery.
Holy shit.
So, because of all this activity, all these ghosts are still there, and kind of there's so many possible young women here that could be the cause of that lady in white. Maybe
Right.
they're all part of it. I don't know. But highly haunted. Ed and Lorraine Warren thought it was so haunted they needed to write a book about it, and felt that that video of the lady in white was one of their most compelling pieces of ghostly evidence. It's a pretty creepy place.
I do want to say that, say what you will about Ed and Lorraine. Some people think that they're a crock of shit. Some people swear by them. I go 50-50. I think some of their experiences were true and real, and I think some of their experiences were some bullshit they made up to make some dough. This sounds like it is one of their legitimate experiences, and it almost makes me want to get that book and read it.
I know. I'm so curious as to what else could be out there. And I'm with you on Ed and Lorraine Warren. I know we've talked about doing an episode in the future on them, and I really think we should, because they're fascinating characters for sure.
They absolutely are. And I just think that this is definitely one of their legitimate cases that I actually want to find out more about. Like I said, I'd be very interested in reading the book they specifically wrote about this graveyard.
Me too. And as you know, I just love the lore and the history around ladies in white. They're so fascinating.
And you love orbs, don't lie.
And orbs, I do too. But just the idea of all of these tragic love stories, tragic children's stories attached to women in white, is just the lore and legend around it is fascinating. So hopefully you all out there had a much better Valentine's Day than any of our lady in white did.
And also, to get one more lady in white story, again, check out our episode 31, Emily's Bridge, because she was definitely a famous lady in white. You can find the story of Devil's Elbow, the lady in white from Owego, New York, in episode 14.
There's also episode 1, The Exorcist and a Hitchhiking Ghost, that has a lady in white ghost story. So yeah, check out those episodes for other lady in white stories, including the La Llorona episode, which is the epitome of the lady in white folklore. Hopefully you'll have a better Valentine's Day than any of them did, and hopefully your romances don't end in tragedy.
Now, we've got something for our next episode that is going to be freaking-tacular. Next episode, we are both going to talk about the haunts, the ghosts. We can even talk about orbs if you'd like, Layla. But we are going to go down to New Orleans. We are going to celebrate Mardi Gras. We're going to be getting fat on Fat Tuesday, and we're going to be getting ghosty at 4:20 a.m. on Ghosty New Orleans haunts. So check us out next week. We're going to hit up New Orleans, and we're going to see what all the hype's about.
Stay high, stay happy, and we will see you next week on The Stoned Witch's Hour.